All right, hello Algebra 2 students. We are going to be getting ready for the upcoming test covering sections 8.4 to 8.6 on rational expressions. I'm back with my gray sweatshirt, of course, and this is my Corona haircut from my wife. First time she ever cut hair, so yeah, it's all right, I guess. Surviving with it. But all right, so I'm just going to blast through a bunch of review questions with you. As always, I encourage you to pause the video and try them, and then check your answer after having given them a shot, right? Unlike what this meme says, these questions will be pretty similar to what's on the test. So if you can make sense of these, hopefully you'll be ready to rock for the Chapter 8 test here. All right, so we start off with just simplifying rational expressions. We're not going to do this restriction stuff. We didn't put that on the test at all, but you will have to simplify, right? So pause the video, give it a shot. All right, so hopefully you remember the trick is you have to factor and then cancel. So I know it's kind of untraditional, but if I was to simplify 4/6, one of the ways I could do that is write 4 as 2 times 2 and then 6 as 2 times 3, and then realize that, hey, they both have these times 2, so they cancel out and reduces to 2/3. Okay, we're going to do that same process here just with a rational expression. So really a lot of this test is knowing how to factor. And both of these are the case where you have a trinomial 3 parts, and it's going to split into binomial times binomial. Right, up top we got z squared, so we know we're going to need a z and a z. And then to get this -6, right, it's got to multiply to that. So we're going to need one negative, one positive, and then they have to add up to -5. So I think -6, +1. Okay, and then I'm hoping I'll get a matching factor in the denominator. So it's a good hint to think I'm probably going to have one of these in my denominator. And let's see, so +18 and add to -9. So I'm going to need z and z again. And it's going to be two negatives this time, right? I'm just going to guess that one is -6 to match up here. And then, yep, that would make sense because then the other one would be, let's see, -3, right? That would add up to -9 and multiply to +18. All right, now it's the fun part. We go zoom, zoom, cancel it out. And what we're left with is z plus 1 on the top, and then just z minus 3 in the denominator. And that's it. Sorry, my pen is having difficulty writing here. Z minus 3. Okay, so next up is multiply and divide. All right, and multiply is really the same thing as this, right? Except it's just one giant question. So you can make, because if you were to multiply, you'd multiply these numerators and multiply the denominators. So it's kind of just like one giant fraction, and then you're just going to reduce stuff from the numerator and denominator. Okay, so really the plan is just to factor it all and then cancel out whatever you can. Okay, hopefully you've given it a shot. So this one doesn't factor at all. And then this is the trinomial case. So we go x and x. And then this is kind of a tricky one, but -1 minus 2. That multiplies a +2, adds to -3. The one down here is going to take one negative, one positive. If it multiplies to -6. Okay, and so it looks like it's going to be -1, +6. Okay, and then the one up here is just the square minus square case. So we know that it's x and x to give us the x squared. And then to make -36, you use +6 and -6. All right, and it's kind of like there's 0x in the middle. So this -6 and +6 cancel out. So that leaves like 0x's in the middle. Okay, so now we just got to find common ones and cancel. So we've got, let's see, an x minus 1. And x minus 1 up here. Then we've got an x plus 6 and an x plus 6 that match. And so what we're left with, I don't think anything else cancels. In the denominator, all we have is x plus 2. And then in the numerator, you'll have the x minus 2 and the x minus 6. All right, and that's it. All cleaned up. We can check if there's anything else that would cancel, but it doesn't look like it. Also, you could FOIL out this numerator if you want, but oftentimes I'll just leave them in this form, right? And on the test, I think our multiple choice answers will be in this factored form, so it's probably the easier way to do it that way. All right, next up, so again, we don't have to do any restrictions. That part we don't have to do. And then next one is just a divide one. Again, pause the video and try it before continuing. All right, so first thing on a divide one is before I do any canceling, I want to turn it into a multiply question. So I'm going to flip the second one and make it multiply. So literally all I'm doing is flipping the second one. Okay, and now that it's multiplied, now it's the same thing as the last question. So we're going to factor and cancel. This first fraction here, not much to factor. It's already kind of factored out. And then the second one, I'm just going to factor the top part. So let's see, that would be g and g, and then multiply to -18 and add up to -3. So I know I'm going to need one negative and one positive, and the negative is going to be bigger. So I think -6, +3, that should work. Okay, and now we just go through and say, okay, here's a g minus 6, g minus 6, those cancel out. And then what are we left with? The denominator is just g plus 5. And then the numerator is the g plus 1 times the g plus 3. And I believe that's it. Right? That's a simplified version of what we started with. Right? Actually, not simplified. It's division of these two. And it's not really division in any sense, right? It's just factoring and canceling is what it really is, more than anything. So again, this is it. Factor. Factor. If you know how to factor everything, this test should go okay. Okay, next up, add one. Okay, so adding, if you forgot adding, think back to fractions, right? And so to add, we just need a common denominator. So, you know, basically on something like this, you would take the top, or this fraction times 5, and this one times 2, so that you have a common denominator of 10, right? So sometimes you got to multiply both fractions, sometimes you got to do just one, right? But once you get a common denominator, so 1/2 is the same thing as 5/10, 2/5 is the same thing as 4/10. And once you got a common denominator, now you can just add them. You have 9/10. All right, so we're going to do a similar process just with these rational expressions. Okay, and the tricky part is, to me, is find the common denominator. Once you get the common denominator, adding is not so bad. So the key to this is to realize that this denominator on the right is actually the square minus square case. So this is really like a t minus 3 and a t plus 3. Okay, so thinking of it that way, then we could say, well, this one, to make them match, just really needs a t minus 3. And doing that will make it so that both denominators are t squared minus 9. So I don't have to do anything to this fraction on the right, but the one on the left, I have to multiply the top and bottom by t minus 3. Right, and just to make it a little simple and save a little bit of writing, I could write my denominators this way, t minus 3 times t plus 3, but we really know that that's the same thing as t squared minus 9. So I'm going to write it actually in the multiplied form. So I'm kind of multiplying and factoring, taking it apart, putting it back together. Kind of depends on the situation. Okay, then up top, the numerator in this one would be 5t minus 15. Okay, and then the other one is unchanged, so it's still just 5. Okay, and so now we keep the denominator the same. And the numerator, let's see, -15 and 5, when I add that together, is 10, or -10, I should say. Right, and so at this point we have our answer. It'd probably be smart to see if anything cancels. So to do that, we already know the denominator is t minus 3 times t plus 3, but we could think about the numerator. If I pulled out a 5, maybe I could get something that matches, but it looks like we're not so lucky this time. So nothing matches, so I'm just going to leave it in this form. And again, it doesn't matter if you factor it, write it in factored form, or multiplied form. It really doesn't matter. Either one of these last two things here would be acceptable answers. On the test, if it's multiple choice, you might have to, factor or multiply to kind of get the answers to match, but hopefully that'll work out okay for you. One more add one for you. This one has a real trick on it, and I think this might be on the test, but you can save yourself a lot of work here if you can realize this trick. So I would star this one. Make sure you understand what's going on with this, because it'll help with the test. Okay, so to add, again, I need a common denominator, and much like the previous question, to figure that out, I want to factor and figure out what's missing from the denominators. Right, so the one on the right, not much going on there. Okay, but the other one, so I'm going to leave the one alone. This is b minus 6, whoops, b minus 6 over 9. Ugh, why am I doing this wrong? My brain is thinking 9 when it should be 6. All right, and then the other one does factor. All right, so b and b to get to b squared, multiply to positive 48 and add to negative 14, so it's going to be two negatives. And if you get stuck, I always tell kids, list out what multiplies to 48. Right, so like 1 and 48, that doesn't add up to 14. So 2 and 24, nope, that doesn't work. 3 and 16, no. 4 and 12, still no. And then 5 doesn't work, but 6 does, so 6 and 8, and that finally does work. So I'm going to have minus 6 and minus 8. All right, so the trick on this one is it would seem like I just multiply this other fraction over here by b minus 8 to get them to match, and that would work. That for certainly would work. But the cool trick on this one is if I factor the top of this with b and b again, then we will find that it actually cancels out. So multiply to 64 and add up to negative 16 is actually negative 8 and negative 8. Again, you can make a big list if you're not sure. Computer is dying here. Sorry. It should be negative 8 and negative 8. All right, and then the kind of the cool part is, oh, hey, these cancel. Boom, boom. And now we have matching denominators of b minus 6. Okay, so again, you could multiply the one on the right by b minus 8, but because the b minus 8s cancel out in this first fraction, now I've got what I want, right? Now I essentially have b minus 8 over b minus 6 plus 9 over b minus 6. Okay, and now I've got what I want. Right now I've got common denominators, so I can add them together. My answer will just be over b minus 6. And I just add b minus 8 plus 9. So the minus 8 and the positive 9 become 1. So I end up with b plus 1 over b minus 6. Sorry that didn't write well. My computer again is freaking out. But that would be my final answer. Right, so this one has a neat trick where that reduces, and then it makes it a lot easier than having to take this fraction times b minus 8. All right, hopefully that all made sense. Please reach out. If you have any questions, just reach out to your teacher, and we are happy to help you. That is our job. We're here to help. So let us know if we can help in any way. That concludes the first review day for Chapter 8.